April 1846, Springfield, Illinois. 9 wagons roll out of town carrying families who believe they're heading toward a better life in California. By the time anyone finds them again, 10 months later, 12 are already dead, and the rest are being dragged out of the Sierra Nevada half-starved, frostbitten, and in some cases surrounded by the remains of people they used to know. Most people know the headline: snow, starvation, cannibalism. What most people don't know is how strange the details actually get once you stop looking at the disaster and start looking at the choices that caused it. If you're new here, please like this video and subscribe to Night Vale Files. There's more buried history where this came from. Here are 12 things about the Donner Party that still don't sit right, even after 180 years of people trying to explain them. 1. The shortcut that never existed. The man responsible for sending the Donner Party toward disaster never set foot on the route himself. Lansford Hastings wrote a guidebook promising a new path across the Great Basin that would shave 300 to 400 miles off the journey to California. He'd never actually taken a wagon through it. He hadn't even walked it on foot with a full party. He was guessing, and he was guessing in print under his own name to strangers who would stake their lives on his word. 2. They were warned specifically and repeatedly and went anyway. James Kleiman, an experienced mountain man who had just come back from the Hastings route, told them directly not to take it. He said it wasn't passable by wagon. The Donner Party listened to him, thanked him, and then chose the cutoff anyway, because the math on the map looked better than the warning from the man who'd actually been there. 3. The shortcut added a month instead of saving 1. This is the detail that should be more famous than it is. The route advertised to save the party 300 miles instead cost them nearly a month of additional travel, because the party had to cut their own road through the Wasatch Mountains tree by tree before a single wagon wheel could move. A shortcut that requires you to build the road first isn't a shortcut. It's a delay with a marketing problem, or they crossed a desert that almost killed them before the mountains ever did. After the Wasatch, Hastings had told them the Great Salt Lake Desert crossing would take 2 days. It took 5. Oxen died of thirst in the salt flats. Wagons were abandoned. Families that started the crossing with full teams finished it walking, having lost animals that could never be replaced on the open trail. The mountains hadn't even started yet, and the party was already crippled. 5. A murder split the group apart at the worst possible moment. In October, a wagon dispute escalated into a stabbing. James Reed killed a teamster named John Snyder in a fight over oxen and a whip. The party didn't hang Reed, though some wanted to. They banished him instead, sending him out into hostile territory alone, separating one of the group's more capable and resourceful men from the people who would need him most just weeks later. 6. They abandoned a man in the desert and barely mentioned it. A Belgian traveler named Hardcoop, too old and too weak to keep walking, was put off a wagon by Louis Keseberg because the oxen needed the relief. The party kept moving. Hardcoop was left behind in hostile territory with no way to catch up, and the diaries that survive treat his disappearance almost as a footnote. He simply isn't there anymore, and the entries move on to other problems. 7. They stopped to rest right before the mountains turned deadly. At Truckee Meadows, near what's now Reno, the exhausted party paused to recover before the final push over the Sierra Nevada. It seemed reasonable. Their animals were spent, and the people were worse. But that pause cost days they didn't have, and the first snow of the season hit, while they were still on the wrong side of the mountains, just short of the pass that would have put them through. 8. The snow came earlier than it should have and trapped them within sight of the summit. Multiple accounts describe the party as being almost across, close enough to see the path forward, when an early and unusually heavy storm sealed the pass behind and ahead of them simultaneously. A matter of days, maybe even hours, separated the families that froze at the lake from the families that would have walked free into California before winter ever arrived. 9. Someone kept a diary almost the entire time, in the middle of it all. Patrick Breen wrote in a journal nearly every day from November through early March, through hunger, through death, through the unraveling of everyone around him. He recorded the weather. He recorded who died and roughly when. He did this while his own family was starving in the same cabin. It's the only contemporary written record of what the winter actually looked like from inside it. And reading it now, the entries get shorter and flatter as the months go on. Not more dramatic, just plainer. Like the horror stopped being something to describe and became something to survive one line at a time. 10. The first rescuers found a camp that didn't look like people anymore. When the first relief party reached the lake camp in February, the scene that greeted them didn't match anything they'd prepared for. Survivors were described as barely coherent, some unable to recognize their own situation, some simply staring. The rescuers had trained for starvation. They hadn't trained for what 4 months of it actually does to a person's mind. 11. Half of the deaths happened after the rescuers already knew where they were. This is the detail people skip past. The Donner Party wasn't lost in the sense of nobody knowing where they were. Rescuers reached them in February, but getting everyone out took until April, because the snow made repeated trips nearly impossible and supplies couldn't be carried in fast enough. Nearly half of the disaster's timeline happened after help had already arrived once. Knowing where the suffering is doesn't mean you can stop it quickly. 12. The last man out was the one nobody trusted, and the truth about him still isn't settled. Louis Keseberg was the final survivor pulled out in late April, found alone in a camp surrounded by human remains. He was accused by other survivors of murder, not just cannibalism of the already dead. He sued his accusers for defamation and won the case technically, though the court awarded him $1 in damages. Historians still don't agree on what actually happened in that cabin during his final weeks alone. Keseberg himself never got the chance to live it down. He died decades later, still known primarily as the man from the Donner Party that even the survivors didn't trust. 12 decisions, 12 points, where a different choice, sometimes by a matter of hours, might have changed everything. A guidebook nobody verified, a warning nobody heeded, a shortcut that wasn't, a man left in the desert, a storm that arrived just early enough. None of it required bad luck on a cosmic scale. It required a series of ordinary, human, explainable mistakes, stacked on top of each other until the mountain did the rest. What's strange isn't any single decision in isolation. People take bad shortcuts. People get into fights over oxen and whips. People rest when they're exhausted, even when resting is dangerous. Every one of those choices looked at alone is something almost anyone could imagine making under enough pressure and exhaustion. What's strange is the sheer density of them, all landing on the same 80-some people in the same 10-month window, each one closing off a door that might have led somewhere safer. Take away the murder, and Reed might have been there to help organize the group during the worst weeks. Take away the hard coop abandonment, And maybe nothing changes, or maybe it tells you something about how quickly a group under pressure starts treating its weakest members as expendable. Take away just 1 week of delay anywhere along the route, and the party crosses the summit before the snow ever arrives, and the Donner Party becomes a forgettable footnote in the history of westward migration instead of its most infamous disaster. That's the part that should unsettle you more than the cannibalism does. The horror at the end is well documented. The horror is also, in a strange way, the easy part to process. Because it's so extreme, it reads almost like fiction. The harder thing to sit with is how mundane every step leading up to it actually was.